So as you can see behind me, I have a lot of lenses. And I have about every kind of lens I need, and I've acquired them over the years. But in this video, I want to share my experience with you on how to get good, cinematic, high quality glass for really cheap so that you don't have to be spending thousands of dollars on a single lens, and you can get whatever you need with whatever kind of budget you have. Now, I'm kind of going to be breaking up this video into segments, and I'm going to be talking about different lenses, the price I got them for, and what they're useful for. And so if you find that you're not interested in the exact lens I'm talking about, go ahead and use the chapters to skip to the next lens for how to get those kinds of lenses cheap for whatever exact kind of videography or cinematography that you do. So the first lens I want to talk about is the 70-200 2.8 lens that I got for $300. Yeah, you heard me right, $300. This specific model is the Sigma APO-DG 70-200 2.8 Mark II EX from Sigma. This is full frame glass. In fact, all of the lenses in this video are full frame. So if you're worried about whether this is a crop sensor lens video, it's not. All of these lenses do work on crop sensor cameras, but they are made to cover full frame and sometimes beyond sensors. Now, this lens is inside telescoping, meaning that I can zoom from 70 to 200 and it won't extend the barrel of the lens, which is great, especially if you're gonna throw this lens on a gimbal, which is sometimes useful from time to time. This lens is mainly useful for sports and any kind of documentary style shooting. However, it definitely can be used for more professional situations, but I find that this lens sometimes does a little bit better if you stop it down just a hair to keep that in mind. Now, you might be wondering how I got this lens for only $300. And part of that is because it's an older Sigma lens. It's not quite up to the standards of modern Sigma glass. The bokeh isn't quite my personal favorite. However, it's a great lens and I love using this for sports and documentary work. It's got a great close focus, so I use this a lot with weddings as well. It's great to get detail shots if you need that for your style of cinematography or videography. Now, some of the cons with these kinds of lenses are the fact that you're gonna have to get them used. If you wanna buy new glass, you're gonna have to shell out a lot of money. And it is older, so the autofocus isn't quite as good and sometimes doesn't adapt to newer mounted cameras. This is in the F mount, but I use the manual focus ring on this all the time. It's super fluid and smooth, and since I focus manually, even for sports, this is a great lens to have in my kit. A lot of the lenses in these videos I'm gonna talk about requires manual focus, so if you need autofocus, keep in mind that you may have to pay $200 or $300 more to get the exact version for your lens, and if you're a Sony shooter, it's gonna cost you a little more as well. Canon shooters, you could get these lenses cheaper, but that depends on whether you want to convert from EF to RF. That's totally up to you for your own specific mount. And if you want to buy proprietary glass, you're going to have to look for that yourself. I'm just mostly talking about the lenses that I use in manual focus in particular. The next lens I want to talk about is the Sigma 24-70 DG HSM EX 2.8 Mark I. Yeah, that's a super long name. It doesn't really matter. It's a 24-70 2.8. Just like any other 24-70 2.8, it works really great. This one does telescope, so the barrel does extend. However, it's got pretty good close focus, and I really love the look I get out of this. It's pleasantly soft. It's not too soft, and if you want it to sharpen up a little bit, you can stop it down to about a 3.5. I find that's where it sharpens up quite nicely. But if you like that kind of more glowy look, this lens does a great job. I find that you don't need to stop it down and it looks great wide open. Now, again, this lens is an F mount because I shoot Nikon and Lumix, and you can adapt this lens to pretty much any camera you want. Because it's from a DSLR mount, you can adapt this to pretty much any camera. So for 330 bucks, you can get a 24-70 2.8 that manual focuses really, really well, and I find works great on gimbals and works really good handheld. Again, great for sports, documentary, and weddings. Of course, you could use this in a commercial or cinema style shoot. I'd recommend cinema lenses for that, but it can be used there, and I've tested it out quite a bit, and I really like this lens. Again, really cheap, really good option if you don't mind manual focus, because these lenses won't autofocus. Of course, if you use Sony or Canon or any other brand and you want to buy that proprietary autofocusing system, again, you're going to pay another $200 to $300 for that. The next lens I want to talk about, and this is one of my favorites, is this Nikon 85 1.8G. Now, there's a 50mm 1.8G, and a lot of things I'm going to say about this also apply to that lens as well. Again, the autofocus on this is pretty fast. It's a little bit noisy, but it does have autofocus, and these Nikon lenses run about anywhere from $100 to $300 depending on the focal length you get, but you are getting that 1.8 aperture and it looks beautiful. Now this lens does have gears built in, so you don't have to add a gear ring around it if you want to focus it with a follow focus or throw it on something like any of the RS2, RS3, RS4 gimbals that have the focus motor. You can just slap it right on and it works right away, which is a huge pro for me. Again, I think the 50mm goes for about $100, the 85 goes for about $150, and if you want to get the 35, they're pretty hard to find. Those go for about $300. I don't have one of those myself, but I have seen them before and they look pretty much the same. But I absolutely love this lens, and it is a great pickup if you want to use manual focus or autofocus. Again, if you're going to use another system other than Nikon, like I do with Lumix, you can adapt these really easily for about, you know, 10 to 30 bucks, depending on the brand of adapter you get. But these lenses look absolutely phenomenal, and I absolutely love them for more commercial or cinema work. Now, real quick, I want to talk about a classic and another variation of the classic, and the first is the Helios 442. Now, this lens, of course, I'm sure you've heard a lot about it. If you want to hear more, I have videos on my channel talking about it, but it is a phenomenal lens. It looks great, covers full frame, and gives you that swirly kind of anamorphic look to it. Love this lens. Again, you can adapt it with a gear to use a follow focus. It looks absolutely phenomenal and has been used on feature films like The Batman and Dune 2. So if you like that look, this lens is a great pickup for about $100. The other lens in my hand is a random unbranded 28mm lens from Japan. Again, I've adapted this to both the L mount, and I also have an adaptation to the Z mount as well as F mount. You can adapt this lens and any other vintage wide angle lens to just about anything. I think I picked up this lens for about $2.50 at a Goodwill. So if you're looking for more character and something to blend with a Helios, find any random wide angle vintage lens. It will pretty much do exactly what you want. It looks very similar, and I love just the look I get out of this lens. It works with, again, any camera, manual focus, but they're super cheap. So if you're looking for something to work in more of the cinema or the commercial field, lenses like this will do it. Go to any random pawn shop and you can find a bunch of lenses just like this. Now, while we're talking about vintage lenses, if you don't have any kind of money to get a zoom lens, you can get a long prime. I shot an entire season of baseball on this 200mm f3.5 lens. It works absolutely great, and I would just punch in or punch out on my sensor when I wanted to get closer or farther back. And again, if I wanted to get even wider, there's this 135 f2.8 prime that I use that I like. It gives a nice haze to the look, so in direct sunlight, it doesn't look great, but if you have a matte box, you'll be totally fine. Lenses like this cost, I think about this 135mm for $10 at a pawn shop, and I bought this Vivitar 200mm for $14 off eBay. Again, if you need something in a pinch, vintage long lenses work great. If you're curious more about any of these lenses, I have plenty of reviews and sample footage on my channel. So if you're interested in that, make sure to like this video and subscribe and check out those videos. And if you're interested about these Sigma lenses, make sure to subscribe because I have some videos coming out about those in the next few weeks. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned.